Hey there, nation. Welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and we're back with another episode of Hobbyside. And on today's episode, we are doing an army showcase of our studio's 3,000 point Nurgle Legion of Chaos army. So as you can see right here, we have the entirety of the army all on display. And as always with each of our showcases, we'll talk about exactly what constitutes the army, what kind of miniatures make it up, how we painted them, and pretty much the entire design concept behind them as well. Now, you guys have probably seen this army quite a bit, especially during our Warhammer the Golden Age, which is our series of Warhammer Fantasy Battle reports. My buddy Dark Lord Mac, this is the army that he primarily uses whenever he plays Warhammer Fantasy Battle. It's his favorite army to play, which is with Nurgle, especially Chaos Legion Nurgle. And so we're going to talk about exactly what makes up this army. Now, if you guys followed our series, Down with the Sickness, we basically went over that entire series where we actually showed you the actual process of us actually painting up this army. So, and we talked about how we paint up each of the individual ones as well. We've also have little painting tutorials as well for cheap shots, talking about how you guys can quickly as well as cheaply paint up miniatures. But we really haven't done a video just showcasing the entirety of the army in its entirety as well. Now, just for a little bit of a heads up, this is actually our smallest army in our studio, for 3,000 points anyways. Traditionally, Legion of Chaos armies are a little bit on the smaller side, just because Chaos Legions are, have such heavy point costs for most of the miniatures, but this army is especially so. It's actually just consists, as you can see, just a couple of units. We actually have, I think, 6 units of all in all, and then like 3 character miniatures, and that's really about it. So let's go and talk about that real quick. So let's talk about this front rank first of all. First of all, we have 2 units of 3 bases of Nurglings. As you can see, these are just the typical Nurglings from Games Workshop. So we have the Degenerates on this side, as well as the Inglorious on this side as well. This is during the, I think these are the still miniatures that they still use for Nurglings even today for them as well. You can use these in games of 40k as well as Warhammer Fantasy Battle. These are actually very, very easy to paint. Actually, the entire army actually was very easy to paint. My suggestion to you is that if you ever think about starting an army and you're really not good at painting and you're like wondering which army you should use, go for a Nurgle army. Nurgle armies are extremely easy to paint. Same thing with demon armies, especially that. Like for example, if you play 40k, you could play a Nurgle Demon Army. Very, very quick and easy to paint. For us, what we did for these guys is we pretty much spray painted all the demon miniatures anyways with Rust-Oleum Olive Drab Camouflage Spray Paint. Just cover the entire miniature with that. Paint them over real quick with some Olive Drab paint. I think we use Palm Leaf by Apple Barrel paints will be used for the fill in the parts that you missed with the spray. And then dry brush them in Kiwi, which is made by Apple Barrel paint, and then paint the bones with khaki, any of the entrails and things that stick out with different colors of oranges, pinks, and greens, and then just apply homemade slime and blood effect, and voila, you are done. So this army was very, very quick to paint as well. So these are our 2 little units of Nurglings that we have. We also have a Demon Prince of Nurgle as well. We actually have 2 Demon Princes that we actually have. This is the one that's made by Games Workshop. This is the old Great Unclean one from the mid-90s. This is actually a pewter model I was able to get from one of my friends. Back when I was a kid, I used to play Warhammer quite a bit with my friends, but a couple of my friends, as we got older, kind of fell out of it, and so they gave me some of their old Warhammer miniatures, and this is actually one of them right here, the Great Unclean one. So this guy is actually super heavy because he's actually made out of pewter. Very, very dense miniature. Very, very heavy as well. You see just awesome blood and gore and bone effects and just looks rightfully diseased. Now, the thing that's about this guy is that in his right hand, I think, no, his left hand, which is this hand here, he's actually missing his left arm from the miniature. I do have the hand. If you go in really, really close, you can kind of see the hand right there, and he carried a flail. Originally, though, the miniature's arm was like raised up and the flail was behind him. Unfortunately, though, when my friend gave me this miniature, he actually lost the tongue. Same thing with the tongue here. We notice his tongue looks kind of broken. It's because he had like this worm thing that came out of his mouth originally, but it got broken, and my friend also lost the left arm piece and not the hand. So what I did is I glued the hand to the body and added some green stuff on the outside of it to make it look like cancerous growth, and then added these chains to it. Just make it look like he did that. And of course, I just acted like his tongue was like bit off prematurely, and that's why it's all bloody and nasty looking. So even though the miniature was largely complete, it didn't really matter though, because once you painted it up, it looked absolutely awesome. It looked very Nurgly. So like I said, very, very forgiving miniatures in order to paint, and also to sculpt and assemble. So like even if you're missing pieces, it's fine because it just adds to the whole rotten, nasty aesthetic of them. So that's the very first rank right over there. Now the second rank, we have a second Demon Prince. We have this guy here, which we affectionately call the War Pig. This miniature is actually made by a company called Reaper Minis from their Bone line of miniatures. Bones is a series of miniatures they make with 3D printer resin. So if you look on the bottom here, there's the resin. It's just white. This guy, I think, costs $5, I think, to buy, which is absolutely fantastic. And if you put him right next to the Demon Prince of Nurgle, it's kind of the same scale. Sorry, my office chair is squeaking there. It's the same scale, roughly. And so because that just really works out, especially since when this guy first came out, the pewter one anyways, he was like $65, I think. Whereas I suppose this guy's like only $5 as well. So that's what he is. And we made us basically paint him up really cheap. And the reason why we did that is in case with the Eye of the God abilities. So that way if we have any miniatures that make the Eye of God's rules for Warhammer, they can become a Demon Prince and ascend. We could also use them if you want to as a Slaughter Brute that's lined with Nurgle, or whatever we want to use them for, actually. So it kind of works out all the greatness for him. He was very, very easy to paint and looks really, really awesome. And thematically, he matches with this unit as well. Now this unit here is called the Dustman. This is a unit of 24 Chaos Warriors of Nurgle. And this unit's actually kind of neat because it's actually made up of several generations of miniatures. The guys here on the side here, these two guys up here, 1 and 2, these are actually old pewter miniatures from the 4th edition of Warhammer Fantasy. They were called Chaos Warriors with Great Weapons, what they were called. And so those guys are actually made out of pewter. The rest of these guys are from the 5th edition of Warhammer Fantasy. And this neat thing about these Chaos Warriors is that originally, prior to the 5th edition of Warhammer Fantasy, most plastic miniatures that Games Workshop sold they looked all the same. They're all pretty much universal. I know it's hard to imagine that now because the variety of kits and stuff, but before they were all just kind of like carbon copies of each other. That was the reason why a lot of people didn't like buying plastic miniatures in the day. While you could get a lot of them are cheaper, they all looked exactly the same, so there was no variety in the miniatures. Well, during the 5th edition of Warhammer Fantasy Battle, Games Workshop, unleashed the 16-man Chaos Warrior unit, is what it was called, and it was a Warriors of Chaos unit, but it was the first time ever where they actually provided different arms, different torsos, different heads, different legs, and you can put them together and make them all relatively different looking. It was the first time that ever happened in Games Workshop, and it was a plastic kit, and everybody was just absolutely in love with those miniatures. They were absolutely fantastic. In fact, that started the whole, creating plastic kits with different, parts you can use, and just totally revolutionized the Games Workshop's industry at that point. So that's what makes them most of these miniatures. That's what Chaos Warriors used to look during the 5th edition of Warhammer Fantasy Battle. Now, of course, we have our 8th edition Nurgle Lord. That's the unit leader for this one. So we have them in there as well. And then this miniature is actually a homemade one. It's not a homemade one. It's a converted one. We use this guy usually for Festus, the Leech Lord. We also use him for a Nurgle Lord on a Pelican of Nurgle if we wanted to as well. Basically, just took a 50 by 50 tray base and glued a bunch of little Nurglings on there as well, and then put this miniature on the top of it. This is from a game called War Machine, I believe. I believe he's a Minoth character, I think they're called. I forget what they're called. They're like these religious guys. And they have like crosses made out of wrenches for their emblem, as you can see right there. I managed to get that guy for a couple of bucks. I just bought it from a guy secondhand at my local game store, so I just used him to paint that guy up, and because he looked kind of, cardinally looking and, relatively chaos looking. So you can see I painted him in the colors of the Death Guard, classic Death Guard with that bone color robe and his green pauldrons as well. And we used that guy for that character. So that's where that came from as well. So very, very cool. Now, let's go and talk about the army for the demons now. Like I said before, this army is a Chaos Legion, so it's got a lot of demons on it. And the reason why it's got so many demon miniatures is because a lot of these demons came from 2 box sets. It came from the Blight War, I think is what it's called. It's the starter set where they first introduced the Age of Sigmar Stormcast Colonel Vanguard guys. It came in the starter box set there, and they actually had some Nurgle guys, so that's where most of these Plague Bearers came from. I also managed to score start collecting Demons Nurgle box as well. So that's the reason why this army is so demon heavy. So this is the unit known as the Tallyman. It is a unit of 40 Plague Bearers of Nurgle. Look absolutely fantastic with a Herald of Nurgle leading it. That came with the Start Collecting box set. That's where most of these guys came from as well. And I also got a couple of Plague Bearers on 50 by 50 bases using as unit fillers with some Nurglings on it because I didn't have enough to make a full even 40. So I just made those unit fillers real quick with some 4th edition pewter Plague Bear miniatures. And it worked out for the best. Very, very quick unit to paint up. Also, we did that whole using our homemade gore as well as homemade Nurgle's Rot effect. You can look that up on our cheap shop videos. We actually show you guys how to make that stuff. It's very easy to make. You'll never have to buy another pot of Nurgle's Rot or Blood for the Blood God ever again if you use that method that we taught you guys. So these guys are really, really cool. Really love the way these Plague Bearers came out. And like I said, they're extremely easy to paint because if you make any mistakes like picking out the entrails or any boils or warts, it's fine. Because you just throw some gore effect on it or some pus effect and it looks like it's nasty and sloppy like it's supposed to. So very, very quick and easy army to paint up. And surprisingly very colorful. A problem with most Nurgle armies is that they tend to be monochromatic, just basically green for the most part, but we had to put on some different colors with that paint scheme that we have. And this right here is our Exalted Hero. This is Horticultic Slimex on Mulch. He is an Age of Sigmar special character, but we use him as a Exalted Hero on a War Shrine, is what we mainly use him for as well. This is a really cool miniature. It looks very iconic. Let's see, we got this guy, he's like a gardener. He's got a huge pairs of shears and dragging a plow. It makes it look really nasty and rotten looking. It was just a lot of fun to paint this miniature up, especially since you got that little slug thing trying to eat this little Nurgling being used as bait. It's just absolutely hilarious looking. And he once again came in the starter box set for Age of Sigmar, where that guy came from. So that was really cool as well. And in this army, lastly but not least, we have 2 units of 3 Plague Drones. And once again, 3 of these guys came in that starter Age of Sigmar starter box. The other one also came from the Start Collecting box as well. These are the Droning Horrors, is what we like to call them. Just absolutely fantastic to paint. They were really, really cool. We have this kind of like this dark green with this dry brush and mint green type of look to them to give them like this nasty carapaces. And we use different shades of purples for the wings. And the riders are easy to paint. We just paint up the same way we did the other Plague Bearers. So those guys went really, really quick. And we have the Ruination of Prague, exactly the same thing as well. Now you have 3 Plague Bearers. These guys look absolutely fantastic and grotesque. And if you notice, we also changed the wings a little bit as well. We made the wings look like they're going up and down on this one. Well, on these ones, the wings are pointed outwards, so that way you can see the size of the wings. We've done that so that way you can tell the 2 units apart if the bases didn't give it away. Like this one here is like the newer plastic circle base that's see-through plastic. While these ones were still mounted on the old circular bases. On the old black ones. And that's where that came from, so that looked really, really cool too. It's absolutely fantastic looking as well. Those guys are really, really fun to paint and very quick to paint as well. And if you're wondering how we paint up these Nurgle warriors, it's pretty simple. I actually painted these guys up back when I was a kid, actually. So I really didn't do anything different with them. All I did is when I was a kid, I spray painted these guys black and I dry brushed them with different colors of silver and gold and rust, and then I just gave them some washes of some black and brown paint and things of that nature. I wanted to create this really rusty, worn out look for these guys. I didn't want to make them look too slimy and diseased. I just wanted to make them look like they were like more rusted than anything else. Because at that time I thought that Nurgle was a weird color scheme and I wanted these guys to look more like they were rusted and weathered rather than rotten, you know. And when I got these guys out to create this Legion of Chaos army, I decided, why mess with perfection? Just keep them as is and just, paint them up like they're supposed to. But yeah, this was an absolute fun army to paint. You could also watch our series 2 when we had these guys run through their paces. When I played these guys for a little while, running their paces through our different studio armies to see how they stack up. But yeah, this is the army that my buddy Dark Lord Mac likes to play. He likes to play the Legion of Chaos of Nurgle. Sorry about that, guys. My office chair is really creaking on this one. Alright, you guys, so that's going to do it for this one. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest greatest hobby news related to our channel. That's good for this week, guys. We'll catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.